It has been overwhelmingly. So I can say already now, I'm gonna butcher the English language. I think it has been very well received. You know, when you make your 7th album, and when you make an effort to never make the same album twice, you know, there will always be someone who thinks, oh, it's not as good as the last one, or we loved it more when Jacob was in the band. And I can sympathize with that, actually, because I'm like that myself as a fan, you know. I've sometimes a band that has made many albums issue an album that I kind of don't get or something. And there was some fans who didn't get what this album was about, but the large majority of fans have received it really well. And I can understand why maybe they didn't get it, because the last 2 albums were kind of feel-good albums and sort of very beautiful. And then we make this album which has a lot of disharmony in it also, and deals with the tougher sides of life. We knew the dangers of that already. When we knew what the album was shaping up to be, sort of halfway through, we can only do what we are inspired to do, and that was what we did. Personally, it was a hugely satisfying album. I needed to do it. It was either make that album or not make an album at all. But it has been overwhelmingly positive, and it is dark. When we finished Horizons and we started writing the new album, the first song we had was Journey to Nowhere, and it didn't have lyrics, and Henrik did a nonsense vocal over it, and I arranged that because that's what I do in the band, apart from also writing. You know, everybody pitches in their ideas and I arrange them into songs, or if people pitch full songs, I kind of, you know, arrange and say, okay, we'll have some keyboards going there and we'll take the guitars away from there, and this chorus should come twice and things like that. That's my role in the band. Then Michael submitted the track that became Psychotopia. It wasn't anything like it's now on the album now. The dissonant intro, da-da-da, 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 and the verse was there and the bridge was there, and then my mental health went downhill. And everything stopped for a year, and that was also the reason we didn't play Prog Power America. When you've been through that, you're never the same person. I called Henrik up and I said, I can't write a feel-good album right now, and I can't arrange it. Even if you write all the feel-good songs, I'm gonna arrange it like it's pitch black. So, and Henrik was, yeah, if that's what you need to do, then we'll do it. And we talked with the other guys about it. And that became what this album was about people with some kind of mental disorder or personality disturbance. As you can see, it's even hard for me to talk about now because it was such a dark. I was suffering from anxiety and, you know, everything. I couldn't really function. The only thing I could do, actually, apart from teaching, is I also played cover bands and things like that. And that I could do without being affected. Yeah, I was nervous all the time and anxious and having panic attacks and things like that. So the only way I could kickstart the writing process again was to make something that was sounding like I was feeling. A picture I found on the internet, not the one that is on the album, a picture of a woman with paint over her, black paint, and it was dripping from her, and that was kind of, oh, she's covered in black. Oh, that's a good album title. Once I thought of that title, it was like, oh, that's perfect, because all those songs are covered in black, and I'm feeling covered in black. And yeah, it's what you could call it a theme album. It's a themed album. Yeah, and there are some, you know, some stories are connected on the album, but it's not that the album as a whole is connected. But we did something else. We did put some of the musical stuff that is in one song. We repeated that in other songs, and not everybody has picked up on all the repeats that there are. I'll challenge everyone to find all the repeats that there are. I will send you a bottle of red wine or something. A personal greeting, say hi, you found them all. No, I mean that's the thing with Anubis Gate. It's very much a collective. You know, Journey to Nowhere was, and I didn't write anything on that. Black is the song. That's also Michael's. I mean, sometimes people write whole songs and I just arrange them. And sometimes, you know, it's really complicated and we all write little bits of pieces in all songs. And sometimes I wrote a whole song. You know, From Afar was largely my song. And sometimes, you know, Henrik is a fine guitar player. He doesn't play much guitar on the album, but sometimes, you know, Henrik sends a riff and I made that into a song. So I mean, it's largely, if anyone has something to contribute, even if they play it on a triangle or something, you know, it goes in there. If it's good, it goes in there. It doesn't matter who does what. So that's how it works. So, and then we also don't have to rehearse. We're just another place in our lives in young bands, you know, who are 18 years old and they rehearse three times a week and everything is done in the rehearsal room. We were never like that because we all have children, we all have puppies, we all have house loans and we all have work, and you know, just to get the calendars to match for one rehearsal. It's not impossible, but we have to plan, you know, many months ahead, especially after. I have to be careful how much I do after I had my breakdown. I can't stress my body too much, and I'm very aware of that, so I make sure I don't. Oh, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's tempting, but I also know life on tour buses, and it's fun for 3 days. And then it's 1 month without sleep. I hope this will not be taken wrong, but, you know, 3 weeks into a tour and you play in some basement in Kassel, and there are 4 people. I mean, we are not that big. We would be a support band, and we would have, the standard practice is that you have to pay to play. And I have sworn that I will never ever do that. I think it's exploitation, and I don't want to pay to play. But okay, if Iron Maiden came and said, "Hey, jump on our tour bus," of course we'd do it. That would be the right tour, but I'm not naive. That will never happen. But that would be the right tour to do because we would be able to pay our bills while away. Yeah, I mean, if any festival that we can drive to in one day will have us, we'll come and play. You know, if it's not that we have to make a lot of money on our gig. We've played Prog Power Europe a couple of times. That was great, and the expenses were about paid, and that we would do, of course. A couple of years ago, we did play a couple of festivals here in Denmark, but the Danes prefer their metal much more aggressive than we deliver. We don't really have that much of a market for us. We can't deliver that brutal metal that the Danes seem to want. And nor do we want to, because we wouldn't be true to ourselves. Oh, that's a good question. Well, you know, when we did our first album, it was, of course, we're an album, and you know, I was kind of, you know, when it came out and I was sitting with it in my hand, you know, I was like, you know, mentally high for 2 weeks, and I just couldn't contain myself. And yeah, I mean, it's not that my passion is less, but it feels different now. Ever since we did our second album, one of the things we've always done in Anubis Gate is sit down or call each other up and say, should we do the next album? But we always have that discussion. Should we do the next album, or do we have something to offer? Because, you know, one day the well of inspiration might run dry. But the day the well of inspiration runs dry for me, I don't want to put out a substandard album. I never want to do that. So that's the day I'm going to call the others and say, I don't think we should do this anymore. I will not feel that sad when it ends. That's why I love that we did Cover It in Black, because we didn't have to do it. Yeah, it's not that I'm less enthusiastic about the band, but I'm more There's always, when you raise the bar for yourself, when you can't go back, and that's the other difficult thing about making the next album. And I think what we did after The Detached, which was also kind of, everybody highlights that album as a high point. How on earth do we go forward from that album? What we decided was that we pretended we had never done that album, and we kind of stepped aside and took a kind of, it's kind of new road from the album that was after The Detached. And I think we might do that with this album, because we'll have to take new roads and pull in inspirations from other places. So it'll be a country album, the next one, country and western. It won't. I'm kind of glad that we got into the business when CDs were still selling. I think today we wouldn't have gotten a record deal, because there are so many great bands out there. Too many that I can hear all of them. And I feel sorry for all the bands that are forming now that are great. I mean, how are they going to have a sustainable business? Luckily, we are making enough money that we can fund the next album from what we made on the last album, and that's sustainable for us. But we wouldn't have if we had been a new band, because everything is Spotify, and it's like giving the music away. How are the young people who are also themselves only listening on Spotify? They don't even realize they're harming themselves. If we talk about indie rock or something, then it's even worse, because there is still a community within those who listens to metal that buys CDs and buys the T-shirts and go to concerts, but it's getting harder and harder. As we also have to fight for our place. 5 or 6 years ago, things were different. So the competition is huge, and it's of course there's a lot of shit music, but there are also some fantastic bands out there. The only thing they can do is go out there and play and get a good following that will support you when you come and play. I think that's the thing they gotta do, and do it while you're young. Seriously, people, when you're getting to my age, it'll be a nice, expensive hobby for you. It's like golf. First and foremost, you should do music because you love it. Of course, you shouldn't do music for anything else. If you don't love it, don't do it. It's better when you're young and you don't have commitments and kids and stuff like that. Wow, that's when I was young, and I'm talking about 12, 13 years young. I didn't listen to anything other than the Beatles and Creedence Clearwater Revival. I was a huge Beatles fan. I was already then playing gigs in the weekends and stuff like that. Thinking back, maybe I was a kind of child prodigy. I don't know, but I was playing a lot back then. Then I had a schoolmate whose big brother played in a metal band. We had a jam session. I could play what he played, and he said, "Oh, you got to join the band." And then I was suddenly in a metal band, and around that time I had just discovered Somewhere in Time with Iron Maiden. It's still my favorite metal album. It's the best metal album ever recorded. There, I said it. The first Testament albums and the first Megadeth album, Metallica. My heart melts. I love it. And that was a time when I found metal. Then I kind of got tired of playing metal. I got metal fatigue. I went to the conservatory and got an education in playing jazz and stuff like that, and played in all kinds of pop bands. And I thought my career was going to be, my artistic career was going to be playing fusion jazz. And then some of my old mates from Extreme Feedback, Jesper and Morten, they invited me up to Aalborg. And they had a couple of songs which later became Anubis Gate songs. This was some years before Anubis Gate. And we worked on these songs, and it was cozy, and I thought, that was kind of funny, playing metal again. And then suddenly they were recording what we thought was the demo of the first Anubis Gate album. And they invited me down to Jacob Hansen's studio and said, okay, you've got a weekend and you can use all the time you want. Please finish this album. So I did, and I had, I had 3 days where I worked kind of 22 hours a day. We thought we had made a demo of the album because it had electronic drums and the old Morten played an electronic drum set. And we wanted to do it with real drums, and they sent some of the songs to Locomotive Records in Spain. And we got offered a record deal in, I think, about half an hour or something, which was incredible. And then we said, oh, now, yeah, we can record the album for real. And they said, no, we want it like that. So they wanted the demo of the album. And at that point I said, okay, I'm only going to be a guest on the album. But then I couldn't resist because, everybody dreams of being in a band that has a record deal. Every musician will give their right arm for that, and I would too. And that's how I got back into the metal scene. And it's funny you say progressive metal, because I never really saw us as progressive metal. I can see now that we are a progressive metal band, but to me it was just metal. And it became a progressive metal album because I had been playing so much other stuff in the meantime. So that's how it became progressive metal, because it was really just power metal. I became the one that mixed all the spices together. And I wasn't on the first album, but during the second album that became me. Kind of seems impossible that it's manageable. I think it's a bit easier now because our kids are grown up now and they are not living at home. Because I'm so old, I'm a granddad now. It's mainly because my wife is so supportive in what I do. Apart from teaching, some of the money that also comes from me playing gigs in cover bands and stuff like that. So that's work in when I'm very busy. When we have big projects down here in the music school, or if I have a lot of weekend gigs or something like that. Now I make sure that I don't have anything that I have to finish for Anubis Gate or something like that, because that's not healthy for me anymore. And when I was younger, so much younger than today, when I was younger, I mean that I could work endlessly, and I can't anymore. And and that's also a matter of age. And I could work so hard that actually I hadn't eaten for a couple of days and I hadn't noticed, and I was not on drugs on anything. I would never do that. I've never done stuff like that. I don't even drink anymore. The thing is, I could work that hard back then, and I can't anymore. So I try to make sure that I don't. So that's also why there's more than 2 years between Anubis Gate albums now. It's because I don't have that stamina anymore. There are a couple of interesting bands. Melodic metal, prog metal is not that popular in Denmark. There aren't that many bands. I mean, Germany is, I suppose, much better for those kind of things, and Germany is also a bigger, being employed full time with music, with teaching music. So I don't have the time to follow the prog metal scene that much, or the metal scene, or the music scene even. And I hope people are not going to get angry with this. But if I should critique the metal scene a bit, it's I think there is much that is, we have a guitar riff and and we just put the bass drums on, and then we have 10 numbers and of that, and we'll growl in the verse, and we'll have a melodic chorus, and we'll play ultra fast solos, and then we have an album. I have to say I can't listen to music like that, but I'm kind of feeling there is a kind of inspirational inbreed in especially the prog metal scene. It's like, the original prog metal bands, their inspirations were in the 70s. Everything is just about precision, and you can do a lot in the studios. But I mean, it's not like there are bands. I've enjoyed the last two Catatonia albums very much. I mean, that's a band that does something new, especially their last album. I was kind of shocked when that came out because I was thinking, oh no, they're actually digging into the same territory as we are on our new album, and I would have liked to be out before that album with our new album. But you know, they're really doing something really fresh and really great. And sometimes they dig down and then it's great because it's great for a minute. And you get overwhelmed at it. Oh, that's really down-tuned, and then it goes into the stratosphere and something else, you know. And that's the kind of prog metal that I really love. And I wish there were so many more bands, and there probably are, that experimented with the musical conventions like they do. That's just awesome. And I hope that's the future of the prog metal scene.